Hey, looks like we're live. At least I hope we are. Facebook has a new, how should we say, program, and I don't know. It looks like it's blipping in and out right now. Fabulous. Um, we'll give it a shot anyway. If you're having trouble seeing this, or if there's something wrong with the feed other than this random blipping that seems to keep occurring, give me a heads up and let me know, even though I can't even. Oh, I see. There's the live feeds there. All right. It's a whole new setup. I'm incredibly confused as normal. Anyway, this is Aaron Live. Welcome to Aaron Live. This is a special Kit Carter edition of Aaron Live. We're going to take a quick look at the origins of Kit Carter. Some of you are just joining, maybe saying, who the heck is Kit Carter? What's it all about, man? That's what I'm here to tell you. And then we're going to work on a Kit Carter page, and I'll explain that as we go along as well. Before I get started, let me get up and move out of the camera. I wasn't going to do this, but I am going to do this because, well, it's become sort of who I am. This, my friends, is my Raw Imagination 20 Years of Sketches hardcover sketchbook. It is available now. You can get a sketch inside, or you can just get it signed and numbered for $25, or a sketch inside for $45, plus $5 shipping. You can message me, you can contact me through email at aaron@aaronlopresti.com. You can go through my website, which is www.aaronlopresti.com. Yeah, that sounds about right. And these are available, and I just got like 10 orders today, so I really got hit with them today, so that's exciting that there's still interest in it. And so there it is, but we're not going to be doing that today. Instead, we're going to be talking about Kit Carter. This is her, my sort of 50s era sci-fi character, if you will. Let's see who's here. John Smith, hey Aaron. Kristen Geyser Grant is here. Happy Sunday, Aaron. Happy Sunday to you, Kristen. And Warren Montgomery is here saying Kit Carter rules, and that's what he always says because Warren actually letters the Kit Carter strip for me. If you guys are getting a blip like that every like 10 seconds or something, I don't know what's going on, so I can't do anything about it. So we'll try and make the best of it. He goes down here to look. I wonder if that embedding is messing it up. Let's see. No, that's not messing it up. So I'm going to leave that on. What do we got here for? Okay. Yeah, I got no idea why that's blipping. So blame the people on Facebook. They switched the new program, as I was saying earlier, and so I don't even know what's going on. But we'll give it a shot. Anyway, so who is Kit Carter? Well, that's a deep question. Not really. I'm a big fan of 50s era sci-fi type stuff. Some of you that are my age or even older that are really into comics might recognize something like this. This is an EC comic. It's called Weird Fantasy EC. It was a 50s comic book era company. They were very famous for their horror comics as well as their sci-fi stuff and their crime comics. And as you can see here, we have wrong side. We have where am I? Everything's backwards. The girl here is pretty much a bubble helmet space girl. And that's sort of where this whole idea of the bubble helmet sci-fi character came from, is from the 50s and these comics and, old serials, movie serials and things like that. So I always sort of had that sort of retro, even growing up, because obviously I wasn't growing up in the 50s, but I was growing up in the 70s and I would see this stuff, this retro kind of stuff, and it kind of stuck with me because I'd see Frazetta do stuff like that. Even Wrightson, some of his alien characters would have bubble helmets. That was just kind of the standard sort of sci-fi language that was being used at the time. So that kind of stuck with me. Well, about the year, and I'd done sketches of things like this, throughout my youth and into my career, and always sort of had a passion and interest in it. About 2010, I did a print. Here it is right here. Get it up there so you can see it. Boom. It's called Space Hunt. And this was one of the earlier prints I did that I was selling at cons. In fact, I think I debuted it at the Emerald City Comic Con back in 2010. And this is technically the first, and it might even have been in their Monster and Dames book that year, but this is the first, technically speaking, Kit Carter print illustration I ever did. And even though it wasn't named Kit Carter, because I hadn't really come up with the name yet. So the name of the print is just Space Hunt. And it just was, at the time, a generic 50s kind of bubble helmet space character. Well, and I do have those still available on my website, by the way, if you're into that. The very first Kit Carter, in fact, let me show you something over here. This is, in fact, the very first drawing I ever did of Kit Carter. There we go. Okay, that's Kit Carter, Galactic Ranger versus the Astro Zombies was the name of this. And it was originally designed to be kind of a faux 50s serial movie poster kind of thing, you know, just some ridiculous serialized adventure story that you might see, you know, back in the 40s or 50s that would run in between movies, right? A lot of times they did those Superman and Batman, and they had Flash Gordon and other things like that. And this was just kind of making fun of that. I really had no intention beyond just the drawing originally. I was going to use it for a sketchbook cover, but after I penciled it, I knew it would take way too long to get it finished in time for, I was probably trying to premiere it at San Diego. So I didn't end up using it on the sketchbook cover, but I went ahead and colored this, finished it and colored it, and it became a limited, well, not a limited edition print, just a print. Kit Carter, Galactic Ranger versus the Astro Zombies. So, and I only have about 5 of these left, but all this stuff is, again, is available on my website right now. These prints are $15 plus $5 shipping. I've only got, like I said, about 5 of these left, and they're not going back to press on these. So that became my first print. Well, I sold that, and I got a big reaction. Everybody was like, at the con, and every con I went to with it was like, well, what's this? What's this? Is this a new comic coming out? When are you going to do stories? When are you going to do this? When are you going to do that with it? And I hadn't really thought about it. You know, it was just supposed to be kind of a one-off joke, if you will. But the more people talked about it, the more I started thinking about it. So let me grab another one here. And I think the next year, well, this is 2012, I went ahead, and that was the same time I actually did, this was right after, now that I remember, it was right after that Kit Carter versus the Astro Zombies, which was 2012 too. So then I did this one right after it, which is Kit Carter, Galactic Ranger versus the Molten Menace. I actually have quite a bit of these prints left, by about 20, some left available. And these are also available on my webpage. But this ended up being the second Kit Carter print. And of course, now I have 2 Kit Carter prints I'm taking around to shows. And I think I got another one in here. I do. And so I would make these and sell these, and I get the same questions. What's the deal with Kit Carter? Is this going to be a series? When are you going to do it? And I really didn't, even at that point, wasn't thinking too much of it, right? But I did start thinking a little bit more about it and created Merv the Astro Chimp, her partner. And that's a monkey dude there in the background. And this became my 3rd Kit Carter print that I did. And I didn't even know I had this one. I was just looking down and there it was. So this may be the last one I have available for sale. But anyway, so I did these series of prints and a series of sketches and drawings and whatever in my sketchbooks and so forth. But I didn't ever really do anything with it. But more people kept asking, and the years went on, they just kept asking, what are you going to do? Are you going to do something with this? So I finally got an idea. And this is explained in more detail on my webpage blog. If you're not a reader of my webpage blog, you should be. But I came up with this concept of doing what I call a story print. And I did, one of the struggles I had with Kit Carter was trying to figure out a storyline and a way to approach the character in a comic book form. And I just could not wrap my head around something that, I wrote some scripts and I didn't like them, and it just, something wasn't really working. And so then I thought, you know what, this whole thing was meant to be sort of like a homage to the 50s sci-fi stuff, the newspaper strips, like I said, the movie serials, the comics of the 50s. And so I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to do her as like a Sunday newspaper strip? And I'm hoping that some of you actually remember what those were. But you'd have things like Prince Valiant and Flash Gordon and, Steve Canyon, Terry and the Pirates. I mean, Superman, Spider-Man even was, in the newspapers. And they used to do these adventure strips, and Tarzan, Prince Valiant with Hal Foster, as I mentioned. And so I thought, okay, well, what if I did these as a series of color, one-page like Sunday strips, like something you'd see in a Sunday newspaper, right? And so I came up with this, which is Kit Carter Episode 1 story print. Okay, and you can see down here at the bottom, it's not signed and numbered, at least there's the number there. There's 250 limited edition. And so what I did was, and these are still available, of course, on my website for $15 as well. And these are limited to 250. So what the deal was, if you bought one of these prints, or if you buy one now, I have 6 full color episodes up on a protected website of the Kit Carter strips. So you can actually, you buy the print, which you can hang on your wall, it's signed and numbered, it's collectible, right? But it also gives you access to 5 more additional color episodes of the comic strip, right? And so that was kind of an extra incentive to get people to buy the print, and kind of to put feelers out to see if there was really that much interest in publishing something like this. So those are up on a protected website. And then what I decided to do was go ahead and do more strips, but have them black and white only on my website blog for people to read for free. Now, you wouldn't get the first 6 episodes unless you bought the story print, but from episode 7 on, you can start reading Kit Carter's as I produce them and post them on the website. So there's been a long hiatus in between since when I finished episode 6 and put it up on the website, and episode 7. And that's what I'm going to show you what I'm working on right now. We're going to take a look at the page. We're going to break it down a little bit, and I'm going to work on it a little bit. You can see me working on the finished page, which hopefully I'll get inked and get lettered. Warren Montgomery, of course, is doing the lettering, as I mentioned earlier. Get that stuff lettered, and then post it up on the blog, and that'll be free for everybody to read. At least going forward for maybe 4 or 5 more episodes, at least until I wrap up the Zing the Zealous storyline, and that, of course, has nothing to do with Ming the Merciless. So that's a Flash Gordon reference, obviously. Those of you who are unfamiliar with Flash Gordon, I can't help you. But so at least until I finish that story arc, if you will, and then we'll start exploring the possibility of doing a book or a magazine or something with new Kit Carter stories plus all the ones I've already done. So that's kind of the big picture concept behind Kit Carter and where it's going. So I'll quit talking and start showing you some artwork. So, or showing you me drawing some artwork. So let's move this camera down. As you can see, I lowered the camera a little bit so it allows me to zoom in a little bit closer. Now, hopefully this blue line, man, I wish that thing would stop glitching. Oh, you guys aren't getting a blip? That's fabulous. So maybe it's just me getting a blip, and that's fine because I don't care. Okay, let's see. Let's see what I got going on here. Scott Gunther. Thanks, Scott, for joining us. Kit Carter, John Carter, team up, Warren. Okay. So apparently that's all I've got so far. I don't have any other people to scroll to. All right. So let's take a look at exactly what I'm doing here. I turned the lights down low because I wanted it to be romantic. Not really. I turned the lights down low so we could see the contrast with, because there's a lot of blue pencil on this. And I kind of want to take you through, get rid of the autofocus. I want to take you through my steps here at sort of creating this page. And obviously I wrote a script, and so when I start drawing, I'm working from something. I'm not just, winging this. I have sort of a structured plan behind it. Excuse me. So I have my script. And so I'm going to go in for my first panel here. I'm going to move the camera again. This is always a tricky work in progress. Oh, Kristen, you got no blip either. That's great. That is thrilling. I don't know why I'm blipping, but like I said, it doesn't matter if I'm blipping as long as you guys aren't. Okay, so I'm assuming everybody can see this blue line. If you can't, someone post and say, I can't see it. What are you talking about? As I get a drink of water. Now, what I do is I take this, there we go. I'm going to turn it so you can read it. This is a Kohl Erase Prismacolor light blue pencil. It's not a non-photo, it's a light blue. Non-photos have become sort of unnecessary because you can eliminate all the blue pencil. When you scan this and put it into Photoshop, you can drop all the blue pencil out of it. So you don't necessarily have to have a non-photo blue. And the idea behind a non-photo blue is when you scan it or you take a picture of it, it doesn't show up. And that's only partially true anyway. I like these because the non-photo is really light and kind of hard to see, and it tends to be a little bit waxier, and so you end up pushing twice as hard with it anyway, and then you can't get rid of it. So, I'd rather have this blue that I don't have to push as hard and I can see it better because I can eliminate it in Photoshop anyway. Okay, so what I've done here, if you can see these lines here, now this is what you're supposed to do on every panel, and I never do it because I'm too lazy, but for you guys' purpose, I did do it. I established a horizon line. That's basically where your eye level is. So if you were standing in this scene, it's where your eye level would be as you're looking at it. So if I was sitting down looking up, my eye line would be lower. If I was up looking down, my eye line would be higher, right? So in this case, I'm pretty much at the same height as Kit here. This is Kit, by the way. We'll get to that in a second. And so this right here that goes right across Zing's eyes, that is my horizon line, okay? So in other words, in perspective talk, Greg, hi. Thanks for joining us. When you're looking, say, and you're standing on the beach looking out at the ocean, as far as you can see, of course my son calls me right in the middle of my live feed, and you're standing on the beach, you're looking out over the ocean, you look as far as you can see, and you can see the line. It goes straight across the horizon, basically, and that's as far as you can see. That's your horizon line, okay? So what do I do then? I extend this horizon line, excuse me, off the page, and then I'm going to do a little bit thing here. This really wasn't supposed to be about perspective, but since I'm talking about it, that's your horizon line. You pick points on here, right? And those are called your vanishing points. Okay, so all my lines, say on the left side, let's say I'm drawing a building, right? They all come out of that vanishing point for this side, right? And then on this side, they all come out of this point, right? So then you've got, basically that sets up your, if you're drawing a building or a cube or whatever, that's your left side and that's your right side, and those are the vanishing points for those sides. Okay, so basically what I've done here is I've created vanishing points off the side of the paper, and these lines represent everything going this way and everything going that way. And so if I make this grid in my panel, then I don't have to necessarily get my ruler out every single time I want to draw something and get it in perspective, right? Because I've already drawn this grid on here. Well, then I can just sort of eyeball it and fit in the stuff I want to do. Like you can see the chair here I've been working on that Zing is setting in. I used these grids that I set up, these perspective grids, to kind of freehand that in without having to get my ruler out and draw every line exactly, because I've got these guidelines to follow, so I can pretty much wing it and get everything knocked in there. And it in the long run, it's a quicker way to get, like, if you've got a lot of background in buildings, you're in a room interior, and a lot of stuff like that needs to be in perspective. It's a lot quicker way to draw that grid than work around it. But it's such a pain in the butt to actually draw the grid that I usually don't. I just sort of eyeball stuff and then pick my vanishing points later and kind of clean everything up, which probably takes twice as long. So what's the moral of the story? Do as I say, don't do as I do. Anyway, so we'll look at the entire page. Some of this I've got a little bit penciled in. We have a close-up of Kit. I'm not going to give you the dialogue, because then why would you, I'm going to let you actually go read it when it gets posted on my website blog. And there's a close-up of Zing. Then I've got a layout here of Zing unfavorably reacting to something that Kit says as she sort of turns away from him. Then we go down here and we've got Zing accosting one of his guards verbally. And then, of course, Ming giving Kit Carter the dire ultimatum again. And then that's sort of the end of the strip. Now, these are humorous strips, so there is a continuity to them, and there's kind of an adventure story, but it's a humorous one, right? So everything has to, every one of these episodes, these one-page episodes, has to sort of end on a gag, or at least a little bit of humor or closure to the scene, and then we start again on the next scene on the next strip. But they all have to be self-contained, but at the same time be part of a bigger narrative. So they are kind of a pain in the butt, but it's been surprisingly how easy it's been for me to kind of figure these things out. Now, if I actually do a book, I may switch over to do a typical comic book or regular comic book narrative. And I guess I should turn this off. I may just do it as a regular comic book. I don't know, since now that I seem to have kind of a handle on the characters and what I want to do with them. So we'll see. We'll see how it all pans out. But I got to get through this Zing story arc, and when that's done, that'll be the end of the free comic strips, and then I will figure out how I want to proceed from there. Anyway, so here we are in the story. Kit's been captured by Zing the Zealous. She was trying to infiltrate his compound because he's wanted in the galaxy for trying to conquer half the galaxy. And not the whole galaxy, just half, but that's a joke for a previous strip. Anyway, so she gets captured by Zing. Merv is back in the ship, who we won't see again until I think the next strip. And he's supposed to lead a counterattack from behind the compound, and we'll see if that actually happens. But anyway, so we have Kit standing here in blue line, and guards surrounding her, and then there's Zing on his throne. So I'm going to, generally I'll do that kind of a layout with the blue line, so I have sort of a drawing in mind before I place pencil to paper. So in a lot of ways I'm tracing this blue line but adding details. So we have a guard right here, and he's wearing this kind of funky helmet. And obviously I'm going for a that's not right. I'm going for a Flash Gordon vibe. So you have this kind of sci-fi, futuristic, but at the same time retro kind of feel to everything. Of course, the sad thing is most people see this are not even going to have a clue who Flash Gordon is or what the heck I'm talking about. But anyway, in true Flash Gordon style, these guards are shirtless. They're probably going to have hair on their shoulders. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I may do some decorative stuff with those helmets. I haven't really thought about it. But this is basically how I pencil a comic book. I'm using a 0.3 lead, HB lead on this. Um, Adam Garland has joined. Hello, Adam. Thanks for joining. Um, so what I'll do is I'll go in and usually I'll go from left to right, so I'm not, working over the top of something already drawn and then smearing the pencil. So I've already got Zing's head established there. I don't know. Let me zoom in really quick. The one thing that's nice about a 0.3 is it sort of allows you to do some really that's awfully close. I don't know if it's going to be able to focus on it that close. Let me see. If I turn it back to autofocus, will it? Yeah, maybe. Then again, maybe not. Yeah, I think it's just in there too close. Okay, so anyway, it allows you to go in on these smaller faces and do some really nice detail. The problem is it's very difficult for the inker to replicate that small of detail. In this case, I'm the inker, so I'll figure it out. But because your pens you're using, if you use a pen, if you dip the pen, if you use an old crow quill pen, it's carrying a lot of ink on the tip, so it's really hard to get just a little tiny bit to do those really finite details in the face. And if you're using like a, one of these microns or something like that, they are a felt tip based pen, so to get a really hard, tight, clean line, small, is very difficult as well. You can do it with a brush, but you really got to be careful. So I may go in and do his little details in face with a brush rather than a pen. Normally I do the whole thing in with a brush, but I don't know. I've been sort of going back and forth on what I want to be using these days. Now he's sitting in the chair, but I have the chair all blue lined already, so I kind of know where I want his arm. And I'm not going to go super detailed because I want to get through a lot of this in a short period of time for you guys to see, and then I'll just go in and do detail later because it can get pretty tedious. So I have his cape drooping down along the side of the chair, then back up underneath his arm, and then it'll be coming out down here. Of course, he's kind of slouching here, so I'm going to have some wrinkles there in his midsection. He has a big old belt right here. He's not in the best shape because, well, he's an evil warlord. Why would he be? He has people do his bidding for him. And it's a comedy strip, so, the humor has to be sort of captured in the drawing as well as in the jokes that are in the strip. He's welcoming Kit because he's feeling pretty good about himself because he captured her before she captured him. And again, I'm not going to give away the dialogue because you're going to have to read it to find out. He has kind of a tunic that would be draped over his legs here that are kind of, he has a gold armor underneath here. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Yellow Claw. It's a old Captain America villain who had sort of like these metal pants, if you will, skin tight metal pants. That's kind of what I'm going for with the Zing here. So he's sitting there and is kind of lounging back in his throne. And I'm not going to spend too much time drawing the throne because that's kind of the boring part. So we got Kit over here. See if I can Angelo, thanks for joining us. You're very welcome. I'm happy to do it. Um, okay, so we're going to take a look at, again, I've got a blue line here of Kit. She's got her hands cuffed behind her back. Um, she has this sort of, yeah, let's see. It's kind of a, would you call it a bouffant hairdo, I guess? So it's kind of weird to kind of draw it from behind to sort of get it to capture that sort of feeling that I want to get from her hair. Again, I'm not going to go in and do a ton of detail because I just want to get some of this drawn. But again, this is pretty much what I do is I lay out the blue line, and the great thing about it is it's a real time saver, which is extremely important. Most people don't pay attention to deadlines these days, but if you want to stay regularly employed and you want to be on a regular book so that readers know where to find you every month, which I think is a good thing. Guess depending on the book, right? Is you want to be able to meet your deadlines and get the thing done. That's an issue a month, and it can turn into a pretty brutal grind. Right now I'm working on Justice League, and it's a hard book because there's so many characters. And how much time does it take you to complete a one page of a book? Benjamin Lee, let me tell you, anywhere from just a regular panel page, generally you're in that 6 to 8 hour range. If it's really complicated, we could go beyond that into maybe the 10 hour kind of range. Splash panels and double page spreads can tend to get difficult because, again, depending on how much is on the pages, how many characters, what the situation is, it all kind of varies. But the comics used to be 22 pages a month, and that is generally it means you're working weekends, a couple weekends anyway. I generally am working weekends because you know what? I'm not going to have her. Would he be dumb enough to leave her with her gun still on? Actually, Zing might be dumb enough to leave her with her gun still on, so I'll leave that. There's her gun belt. There's really not much to her costume. It's kind of skin tight. And when she doesn't have her air tanks or her bubble helmet on, there's it's just kind of a skin tight blue suit. I do kind of got this sort of piping design here on the sides. They go down from under her armpit all the way down to her knees on the sides. Okay, so we have Kit there. Let's see. Benjamin wants to know. No, you don't get paid hourly for the work. They pay you per page. And do you get paid a separate fee for your penciling and your inking? Yes. So you have a page rate for your penciling. You have a page rate for inking. Now this obviously is creator owned, so no one's paying me to do this. But yeah, if I was inking and penciling my own stuff, I would get paid a page rate for penciling and a page rate for inking. So that might be a bit too hippie over here. I'm going to bring that in and then bring her butt out this way a little bit. Improve her posture a bit. Okay. Don't worry about the butt crack right now. Okay. There we go. All right. So she has a guard standing next to her as he's kind of I don't know, they're warlord-like helmets, but I just kind of, they felt sort of Flash Gordon-y to me, so that's kind of why I went with this. I think I'll just make them humanoid rather than really alien-looking. Um, she got captured by some alien-looking monsters out in the jungle on the strip right before this. So I'm going to have his shoulders kind of slumping down a little bit because, you know, there's a big, he's a big guy, but he's kind of slouchy and not real. Again, this is a humor strip, so he's not maybe as attentive as a guard might be in a serious story. I'm going to have him with these really high belt because I wanted to get a little back fat sticking out over the belt here. It's these little nuances that keep yourself entertained with. But there are also things you need to think about when you're. I'll have them with a tunic down here. It's these little nuances that can really help make your work better than the average. I might do some decorative stuff on this belt. I haven't really decided yet. But for our purposes, we're just really kind of outlining here. So he's holding a spear or something. It'll be kind of a techie looking spear once I figure out what I want to do. All right. You got to factor in, okay, how long is his forearm, which I'm not seeing. And so that means his arm is pushing out a little bit from his body. So, boom, like that. And so then the forearm, let me see if I can, oops, sorry. There we go. See how that works? And the forearm, of course, is hid behind the shoulder and the tricep area there. Okay, so we got a couple guards. We got Kid in there. Okay, I've got Zing's like wise man or confidant, or what do you call it? A advisor. Thank you. That's what I was thinking. So what stands out between the amateur and the professional is the professional will draw all the time, every day for a living with minimal breaks, whereas an amateur doesn't have the drive to get the work done. Well, I think there's a lot of professionals that don't have the drive to get the work done. Having to pay bills is the one thing that sort of drives me. And I have a really overwhelming sense of personal responsibility and professionalism, and it's like if I tell someone I'm going to do something, I do it. Especially, yeah, exactly, Christian. He's got the back fat from being in quarantine too long. But there's nobody watchdogging you. That's the thing. You're your own boss. Now, they can call and, in my case, DC and go, hey, where are the pages, man? You're running late. Are you going to be able to get this done in time? Do we need to call somebody on to help? Blah, blah, blah. So you can get pressure, but usually not till you're in dire straits, right? And already in trouble. So you have to be self-disciplined enough to do this. But to kind of answer your question, it's kind of a joke. When I worked in commercial art, one of my mentors, one of the guys that had been at the studio quite a bit longer than I had and was kind of like training me and helping me out and all that kind of stuff. He taught a class at Portland State, and he had I happened to be one of his students, female student, said to him, not that that's important to the story, but that's just the truth. He gave him an assignment to work on in class, right? And they're supposed to be drawing this thing in class, and he went over to, was going around looking at people's drawings and stuff, and she hadn't drawn anything. And he said, well, where's your whatever that he'd asked her to draw? And she was like, yeah, I'm just not feeling it today. I'm just not feeling, the, because you'll hear a lot of, artists will say that, yeah, I just couldn't get into the rhythm today. Didn't really feel it today. I wouldn't really have it going on, so I couldn't get anything done or whatever. And his response to her was, he goes, that's the difference between a professional and an amateur. And he was exactly right. I mean, you have to make yourself draw even when you're not necessarily motivated to do it. All right, so as you can see here again on this guard that I just drew, you can see I got his gut kind of sticking out a little bit there, indicating that kind of, that maybe it's done lapping over his belt, right? The old joke. So anyway, that's pretty much all I'm going to do on that panel. But you can see, and the great thing here, one thing I started to bring up with the blue pencil, and I don't think I actually finished the thought, was that I don't have to erase this. Okay, so if you do your underdrawing with a pencil, you have got to clean up your pencil before it goes to the inker, at least somewhat, so that they know what to ink and they don't get confused by a bunch of different lines, right? So what does that mean? Well, that means that if I did all this blue line work, if I did it in a pencil, I'm cleaning all that out. And when I do that, I'm probably erasing some stuff I don't want to erase. So then I got to go back in over that and fix it after I've already erased. So you can see how much extra time is involved if you're doing your underdrawing with a pencil. Whereas when you're doing it with a blue pencil, you don't have to do anything. I just leave it there and draw over the top of it. And I can do it, as you can see, pretty cleanly without a lot of erasing because I've already done the drawing underneath in blue. So that saves me a ton of time. Without really, you're not skimping. It's not like you're hacking to get it done faster. You're just using steps that eliminate some of the other steps that you would normally have to take that would slow you down. Okay, so we have a Kit Carter close-up there. It's pretty much done. Again, I did it in blue pencil and really quickly, and then just kind of went over it with a pencil, and there was hardly any erasing involved. Same with the Zing close-up here. I do kind of want to finish his beard because that's bothering me. So he has a Ming the Merciless beard, of course. And I'll go in and put in, the line work that I want to put in later, or what we might call the detailing. Okay, so there's good old buddy Zing. He has a not very original Z on his forehead here, which stands for, of course, Zing. He has this doofy little beanie bulb thing on top of it to make him, so we don't even for a second start to take him seriously. He's got his little Doctor Strange or Dead Man, or name any character that that has one of these, I don't even know what you'd call them, around their neck. Dog collars. I don't know. Anyway, so he's kind of excitedly trying to explain something to Kit because he thinks he may be getting through to her, which of course he's not, because Kit would not fall for any sort of attempt at bribery or how should we say, inappropriate advances from Zing the Zealous. So he's kind of leaning forward in his chair. So we kind of shaded in over here. This is his other arm coming down his hand. You're not going to really see his hand, but it's kind of right here is resting on that side of the armrest there. The chair will go up back here like that. Okay, so let me address this. The proper word for the artist is block, artist block. Yeah, that's what they call it. Let's see. Benjamin Lee says, also heard stories that some artists get burned out and take long-term or permanent breaks and stop producing. So as artists have to keep producing art and have the will and motivation to do so. Yes, and the talent, of course. That's always, you can't, that has to be there as well. But yes, you're right. Um, there's a lot of very talented people in a lot of very different areas of the creative fields, music, art, film, whatever, that just do not have the motivation or can't take the years sometimes of rejection that they have to go through and difficulties to actually achieve their goal. And that's all sort of part of the chemistry and makeup of what makes someone able to be successful at this and what uh, keeps other people from being successful. Um, so kids kind of, as you can see, sort of nonchalantly turning her head away from whatever offer he just made her. I think she's got too much forehead there. See, I do erase sometimes. Of course, the face is the single most important thing. Um, there's a lot of stuff that goes into body language and, what are you trying to convey and all that kind of stuff. But if your faces suck, you're going to lose your audience before you can even get to the other stuff. So you got to make sure your face is expressive, that if it's supposed to be attractive, that it is attractive. If it's supposed to be ugly, that it's ugly, or humorous, or whatever you're trying to go for. Um, you have to make sure you achieve that with the face, or you're going to lose everything. I still might jack around with that hair a little bit. I don't know. So she's sort of, I don't know. It's just not, she's not expressionless, but she's very sort of nonchalant. Yeah, ho hum, whatever. Um, and although, some people think, well, um, if they're talking, their mouth should always be open. But the expression is the most important thing. And if you capture the right expression with the mouth closed, then it doesn't matter if they're talking because people close their mouth in between words too. So you could always argue that, I'm not sure that I'm 100% sold on that face, but for time constraints, we'll continue to move on here. Aaron, hope you and your family are safe. Thanks for doing this. Vincent, oh yeah, sure, man. Thanks for dropping by. Okay, so she's ticked off Zing here and frustrated him so with her answer. So he's kind of got his head reared back and he's kind of giving one of those Homer Simpson "Yo" kind of moments. In fact, he may actually even be saying that, which is one of the great expressions of all time. I wish I'd thought of it. And of course, he's got pointy ears because he's Zing. Got to get the beard going. You can probably see although his head's thrown back, you can see just the point of his helmet right there. I don't know how well you guys can see that. You see how short his nose is? That's because his head's kicked back, so we're sort of looking up at his face from below. because we're probably at about Kit's eye level. So that's why we're seeing underneath his nose, and it's very foreshortened. Okay, so now let's get a little body language in there. He's throwing up his fists, or clenching his fists, clenching his fists. Actually, I got that wrong. Again, we'd be looking up at his fists, so I got to make sure I'm drawing stuff from the right angle. So I guess he's shaking his fists would be the best way maybe to describe that. You know, clutching his fists and bringing him up, you know. Kind of out here, how dare you say that to me? I got to make sure I don't make him look too bulky because he's extremely skinny and wimpy. Okay, so we know he's leaning back, so I'm going to want these curves in his clothing, the wrinkles in his clothing to sort of curve toward his face, so up away from us, because again, we're below him looking up at him. There's his belt again. Okay, so he's got his tunic here hanging down. His legs here, probably going to be bent back a little bit as he's sort of leaning back in frustration. Something like that, perhaps. Again, his little thing around his neck isn't going to be up past his head because he's leaning back, so it's going to be foreshortened behind us, or behind his head, so we're not going to see as much of it. We got his cape here. Maybe we'll put some movement in his cape. See, a lot of times I'll do stuff and look at it and go, yeah, it ain't working, and then fix it as I go along. But again, you're sort of getting the Reader's Digest version. I said that to somebody once, and they looked at me and they had no idea what I was talking about when I said Reader's Digest version. It's like, you know, those Reader's Digest used to put shortened versions of novels in Reader's Digest, and you could read like part of a book without having to read the whole thing, and they're just like, what is Reader's Digest? So I got to quit making old references. Vincent, I'm using a 0.3 HB lead and a mechanical pencil, and a light blue, for the underdrawing is a light blue coal erase pencil. I love the coal erases because they actually do erase. I don't like that. See, there is some erasing. Sometimes you can't avoid it. Not everything is just, you know, comes perfectly out of the pencil. Yeah, let's see. His throne will be back here someplace. Like I said, I'm not really going to worry about that right now. Okay, so basically what do we got so far? We open the scene with an establishing shot of Zing's throne room with his guards, and we see Kit's been captured, and he says something to her. And we go to a close-up of Kit, who responds, and then, of course, a close-up of Zing responding to what Kit said, and then Zing, then again, angrily responding to something that Kit responded to what he said. So, but again, We got two close-ups. I'm pulling back here to give us a little bit more body language for Zing. I kind of worked myself into a corner here in that she's the first one who talks. Now here's the problem. This happens a lot. I have this Zing to this left to right orientation here because Zing's the first one who talks, right? So his word balloon's going to be up here and maybe some here. And then Kit may respond here, right? I don't know. You can't even see that, can you? Okay. So yeah, see a word balloon, word balloon, word balloon, right? So we read left to right, and that's fine. Then of course you'll have a word balloon up here with Kit saying what she's going to say, and then Zing, whatever he's going to say is going to be up here. Okay, now we go back to a shot like this because we've already established that Zing's on the left and Kit's on the right. You can't really flip that without breaking what is called the 180-degree rule, which is basically you establish a left-right orientation for a scene. You can't just flip it now, put her on the right-hand side and him on the left side because it's disorienting without pulling it back to an establishing shot or something else and then moving in for close-ups because it just gets confusing. So her word balloon is going to be up here, but it's probably going to have to wrap around like that to her, and then his response is going to be here like that. So there's ways to work around it, and that's probably what's going to happen. Oh, don't do that. Did I just go black? Are you guys, can you still hear me? Can anyone still hear me? You probably can't, can you? Ugh.